Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wednesday drawing session with me, Frank Cho. There's my trusty Pentel mechanical pencil with 0.7 HB millimeter lead, my kneaded eraser, and here's my favorite paper to draw on, Strathmore bristle board with vellum surface 300 series. Today, I am going to draw Cthulhu. Here's the description of Cthulhu. A monster of vaguely anthropoid outline, but with an octopus-like head whose face was a mass of feelers, a scaly, rubbery-looking body, prodigious claws on hind and forefeet, and long, narrow wings behind. That was from the Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. And here is an actual sketch by H.P. Lovecraft of his creation, the Cthulhu monster. You can see basically what he described. So with that in mind, I decided to draw my version of Cthulhu, basically following the description that he wrote in his book, The Call of the Cthulhu. So the thing about Cthulhu is you want to start with a giant octopus head, and following the original sketch by H.P. Lovecraft, I wanted to draw Cthulhu kind of like sitting and kind of in a kind of a thinking pose, almost like a thinker by Rodin. And now Cthulhu is just a massive monster. If I remember correctly, the Cthulhu is the size of a mountain. So Cthulhu is a massive monster of great proportions. What was it? So Cthulhu was first published in a short story called The Call of the Cthulhu in a pulp magazine called Weird Tales in 1928. And Cthulhu is considered one of the great old one of the pantheons of Lovecraftian cosmic entities. And he's basically featured in a lot of the stories that was published afterward. And the great thing about H.P. Lovecraft was he basically gave everyone permission to use his creations to kind of like widen the myth of the Cthulhu and the Book of the Dead and all that stuff. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. So he was kind of creating this kind of interconnecting, like a Marvel universe, cinematic universe kind of like thing. So even other writers like the Conan creator, why am I forgetting his name? Robert Howers was using some of the stuff that H.P. Lovecraft created. So it's actually kind of fascinating. So again, with Cthulhu, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That's what I heard when I talk about Cthulhu. That's how I heard other people pronounce it. With Cthulhu, you want to create this giant octopus-like head. That seemed to be like the common theme. So in the original sketch by H.P. Lovecraft, he looked like he had like multiple eyes. So I decided to follow that, and his face was like has like an octopus-like head with giant tentacles and feelers. Feelers are these little kind of like a kind of these like a small tentacles, that some aquatic animals have. So there I am. So I'm just kind of like looking at the original sketch, pointing at the different number of eyes and this human-like anthropoid figure. So I'm drawing the eye socket, drawing all these like different eyes. Now the great thing about Cthulhu is it's actually a really cool looking monster. Not only that, it's like you can't really consider good or evil because he's older than the concept of good or evil. but he is considered evil because that seemed to be the outcome. Those who gaze upon it, they go mad because it's basically they can't comprehend the enormity and the vastness and this inhuman looking thing. So Cthulhu itself isn't really quite evil. Actually, Cthulhu just doesn't care. Humans to Cthulhu is like we're like little bugs, and he doesn't care if we live or die. And but he is this giant cosmic monster, one of the old ones, and which is like really kind of a really cool concept if you really think about it, you know. And so there's so following the original sketch and the description, there's Cthulhu kind of like sitting down and gazing out onto the ocean. So I'm kind of like adding, taking some artistic license and adding different, bumps and textures on his skin, even though, even though Lovecraft kind of like described the skin as a scaly, rubbery looking skin body thing. So with that in mind, at this point, I'm just letting my imagination run wild. So, but the most important part is, again, to me anyway, is the giant head, the giant octopus-like head, this grotesque thing. Now, H.P. Lovecraft, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, was one of the influential writers of the early 20th century. He was mainly known for weird fantasy, science, and horror fiction, and he is kind of like the father of the Cthulhu myth, or he's the creator of the Cthulhu myth. And H.P. Lovecraft, he was kind of a difficult guy. He had a very checkered past. So I'm not really going to go into his personal life, but he was a product of his time. Let's just say that. And so he was born in the 1890s during the Victorian era, and died relatively young at the age of 46 in 1937 from cancer. So this guy, he grew up in Rhode Island in a very Victorian upbringing. So a lot of repressed emotions and a very strict hierarchy of status of people and stuff like that. So you got to keep that in mind. And he was a prolific reader, and so if I remember correctly, he read a lot as a kid, and a lot of Victorian novels, like Edgar Allan Poe and all that. And so his writing style is they tend to be very Victorian, a lot of flowery language and all that. With all that inside, some of his ideas were absolutely excellent. He was actually kind of like thinking just outside the box almost. So the concept of like cosmic gods started with him, or he made it popular in the American fiction. So stuff like that, so like I've never read. No, actually, I did read Lovecraft Cthulhu stories, but I just never finished it. I don't know why. But the big chunks of Cthulhu stories that I read, I actually enjoyed it, and that that kind of spawned a lot of movies, and those movies are actually I enjoyed because they're creepy as hell. He seemed to like really fixate on kind of like fish people. So all these like people, that are like aquatic looking, so a lot of like mutant fish looking people and all that. So it's actually kind of fascinating. So I love drawing monsters, and Cthulhu is definitely in my wheelhouse. And so with the octopus in mind, I tried to make the head very octopus-like. Now, Cthulhu, the design of Cthulhu, I think it probably, if I have to guess, it probably influenced a lot of, or helped fire up a lot of Geigers. Is it Giger? Giger or Geiger? The creator of the Alien creature, I think was heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. So if you remember the original Alien movie, where I guess the engineer, the big giant alien, the dead fossified alien in the start of the movie, that is a very Cthulhu-like heavy design. And you can actually see it in the drawing. That almost looked like the engineer from the Alien movie, with that almost like an elephant-like trunk, and then almost like the octopus-like head. So in the description, if I remember correctly, I think Cthulhu kind of had like a webbed hand, kind of like the man from Atlantis, it had that webbed hand. So with this drawing, I really try to emphasize the texture. So I want to draw that kind of that loose, rubbery, scaly skin that kind of hangs over the where the wrist and the hand meet. That always gives that like kind of that like an old person texture, old person skin texture, giving kind of alluding to the ancientness of the creature. Now, the great thing about drawing monster is you don't have to be anatomically correct. You can just like wing it. You can just pull and stretch the figure to to fit to to fit your idea, to fit your vision, and also you know to elicit certain emotions and feelings and stuff like that. And with this figure, I want to convey the colossalness of the creature and the weird alien, inhuman look about it. So there I am, just drawing the kind of like the rib cage, the bottom half of the rib cage. Since he is described in the book as this massive thing, his size, I think it's bigger than Godzilla. He's literally the size of a mountain, like the size of a small mountain. So I thought it'd be really cool to have him just kind of like sitting by a mountainside, kind of like almost like blending in with the the mountainside as part of the environment, whether or not if it's a giant sculpture or a living thing. Oh, and also Cthulhu have this like this long, narrow, dragon-like wing behind him. So if you really think about it, I mean, like Cthulhu is kind of like a chimera, like a mixture of different animals. So you have the octopus for the head. You have like a bat-like, almost like a dragon-like wings, and this oddly misshapen human body. With this scaly rubber-like cold skin. And then since he was so big, he just kind of you kind of make it have this kind of like a like a granite-like look about him, like almost like a granite statue look about him. So I decided to draw him kind of sitting in the like a small recess of the valley against the mountain. So once I have this figured down, you know, like that's when I start shading. So normally I have the light source at the 11, 12 o'clock, 11, 12, 1 o'clock position. That's where the light source is. And with that in mind, I start basically sketching in the shadows. So the thing about drawing monsters is you want to, for me anyway, I try to base it on like nature. So a lot of organic looking things. So a great place to do, if you're stuck on drawing a monster, I tend to start with an animal, and then and basically start mutating it, and that's always like a great building block. So I noticed that a lot of the great special effects designer, they seem to base all their monsters on animals. So recently I've seen a lot of bugs, a lot of weird beetles, and stuff like that. And I've seen other people use aquatic animals like Cthulhu, octopus. I mean, octopus is one of the strangest animal around. And for me, well, I think the coolest animal for me that would make a great monster is a giant turtle. I think a turtle, especially a snapping turtle, is one of the most coolest thing I ever seen. Some basic kind of shading. So it's kind of funny because like originally I started off with an octopus in mind, but as I'm doing this segmented tentacle, it's starting to look more like an elephant, like a grotesque elephant. This is the reason I love drawing monsters, because I'm just winging it. I have like a rough shape in mind. So that's another thing about drawing monster. Basically, have a really cool shape in mind. Once you have that shape in mind, and you can just build upon it. So I had this giant, almost like a dead octopus on top of a guy's head. Essentially, that's the image I had in mind. And then once I have that, and I should just start building upon it. Again, you notice that I erase a lot, so like, yeah, don't be afraid to erase things. If you screw up, just erase it. This pencil stage is the most important stage because this is the stage that I have the most fun, because I am just like winging it, just like designing things and experimenting with things to see if it works, see if it looks right. And if it doesn't look right, then you just erase it and then start over again. So like the old saying goes, if it looks right, it's right. If it looks wrong, then it's wrong. And if it looks wrong, then erase it and redo it. So don't be afraid of the drawing. If you make a mistake, just erase it. Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. So just, if you make a mistake, erase it and just do it over. And, now if you make a mistake in the inking stage, then yeah, then you have a problem. But especially in the pencil stage, you don't be afraid to just try new things and all. So there I am drawing that kind of that clawed, webbed hand. So I'm just adding more shading, I'm just really just working the texture. making sure the texture is right, you know, just having fun with the texture. So there's that loose skin above the hand. So when I was drawing the hand, I was actually kind of thinking of like those iguana hands and their loose skin around their neck, you know. So there I am, you know, like kind of like erasing it, redefining the head shape, making it cleaner. So as I'm drawing this, just making this this big old kind of octopus head, you know. It kind of reminded me of that movie Pumpkinhead. So it had this kind of like this grotesque circular blob of a head, you know, like a round head, almost like a deflated pumpkin. So shapes are really cool. It's like again, when you're drawing monster, just fool around with different shapes and all that. And on the shoulder, I decided to draw these kind of like this, you know, like a blunted spikes. So it's always really cool to add texture when you're drawing monster, but don't go over too much with the texture where you can't see a clear outline of the monster. So that is a fine juggling act, trying to have a clear outline, almost like a humanoid outline, but at the same time perverted just enough so you can see the monster. So if it's too weird, that's another thing. If the monster design is just too weird, where people don't know what the hell they're looking at, you know, that is kind of hard because I guess the creepiest thing is one of the creepiest elements of designing monster is you kind of want to give it a certain element of like a human proportion so that people can understand to a certain degree what they're looking at. So in case of Cthulhu, you can clearly see the hand, the legs, and the head, you know. Drawing that clawed hand. Again, I'm adding little bumps and stuff like that, almost like warts. So adding in the shade, the shadows, just mindful of the light source, which is at around like the 11, 12 o'clock mark position. So when you're drawing monster, I mean, shading is very important because, like, you know, everyone's afraid of the dark, so you want to kind of put the monster in a very have a lot of shadows about him. So when I was drawing the feet, I'd start to go with kind of the forefinger, you know, the three finger and a thumb kind of count. So when I drew the toes, so you have three regular toes with a hidden fourth toe. Drawing the tentacles. Drawing the toes. Those giant clawed toes. So I'm drawing the rocky outcropping. I always have fun just drawing rocks and stuff like that, nature stuff. More shading. Give it that texture on the legs. Now I keep hearing about they're gonna make it like a Cthulhu movie. I think Del Toro was was in talks about making a movie, The Mouth of Madness or Mountain of Madness, or something like that. And I'm not sure what happened with that. Since H.P. Lovecraft, he was born in New England, Rhode Island. I think his parents are from England, so I decided to kind of draw like that cold, foggy English coast. Drawing the kind of like the weird claw at the end of at the midpoint of the bat-like wing. So erasing highlights on the clawed talons. Drawing the rocky outcropping of the valley. Drawing the other wings. Kind of gray toning, adding gray tone to the mountain top. The clouds. That dark, dank English clouds. And drawing the the sea, and adding the schooner boat to kind of give you the the size comparison to see and just show you guys how big this monster is. Adding little feelers on the face. So I'm erasing the highlights to give it the kind of the more of that bulbous forehead. Adding little seagulls in the distance. Again, just kind of add to the immensity of the creature. Erasing highlights on his body spikes. So adding gray tone to the sky. Like a proper English summer. It was nice and gray and rainy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how anyone can live in England. God, it's such a gray, dreary country. It's like living in Seattle. Man, it rains all the time. Yeah, like Seattle and Oregon. I never realized how much rain it got, especially Oregon. I knew Seattle got a lot of rain, but man, I didn't realize Oregon was just the same. I actually thought about buying a place in Oregon until I went there, and it just rained nonstop. It had this like weird. If it wasn't raining, it had this weird mist, you know. And I noticed that I'm one of those guys that needs sunshine. If I don't get enough sunshine, I go into this really deep depression. So I'm kind of lightly erasing the kind of like that mist, the foggy mist, like a proper English climate. So right now I'm just reinforcing the shadows and the outline and stuff like that. Adding more texture to the tentacles. Yeah, I kind of want to do a little like an ancient ruin at the foot of this creature to kind of like illustrate that it was at one point this creature was worshipped, and there's like an almost like an old foundation of an old temple or something like that. So adding the rocky outcropping, kind of give like a hint of like a the cliffs of Dover. Shadows to create that, give it that more of that mood, and almost have like a nice spotlight on the creature. Adding more shadows. So Cthulhu is like one of many monsters. So I'm actually going to look up what all the other monsters are, what they look like. So adding the final touches. And there it is. Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu.